Fine again. Another test. Oh yeah. Hey everybody, I'm just doing a quick recap. I had some car troubles with the GT4 again, and it's the ignition coil because, well, my lazy setup actually got fluids in it, I guess. A lot of corrosion, and it was blue, which could indicate a lot of things, but electrical. And the car just stopped in the middle of the road, and I couldn't get it back up, and I used oil, and I used everything. Tried to clamp the connector a bit more, and I also used a lot of tissues just to clean everything out, but it was impossible. There was so much corrosion inside, it was impossible to get it all running again. Except the 5 minutes before the tow truck came, and I actually made the car run as much as possible to just get up on the tow truck instead of getting towed up with a line. So what happened was, when the car is on, and you can see you see it's blinking again there. There's something in the connection between the distributor and the ignition coil. It's not fantastic, and it does that sometimes by indicating an economy lamp. The connection isn't fantastic for some reason. Could be a lot of things, but in this case it is the ignition coil and the connecting lead that goes into the distributor. So we'll test this again because it's still a bit flaky, and it could be the diagnostics also checking up, because it's a really old ECU in this thing, and this is probably some kind of maintenance it runs the logs or something. But what happens is that this indicator starts wobbling, and it stops up and down basically and falls in between revs, and that's the first indication that the connection is bad. There's not the burn isn't even across the ignition leads for some reason, usually electrical. And the second indication is that green light starting to flicker, as you can see there. It is strange, it still does that after my maintenance. Could be because the connection is pretty banged up and I still need to change the lead and everything. So it could be that, or it could be the ECU, as I said before, trying to run something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disengage one of the leads going to the car battery and wait 5 minutes, and in that case it usually resets the logs and everything on the ECU and resets the computer. And afterwards it can run on idle and see if everything works as it's supposed to do. But as you can see, it's still... maybe it stopped right there. I don't know. It's still flaky. And you can see the battery is working as it should. It's showing 12. So there's nothing with the car battery. Let's try this again. Still flares up. Then I'm revving. And it's not dropping. So if it was a connection problem right now, the rev meter would start wobbling like this and drop between idles. So the second thing I should do before thinking this is working like it should is waiting until the medium temperature is reached, so it's like 50%, and check on the idle to see if it stands there on 1000 as it should be. When usually cold, it's just above. And check if there's still some drops or if the economy light is flickering again. So those are the two indications you should be aware of when doing this stuff. Okay, the computer is reset, the battery is in again, and we'll check for any kind of flickering. No flickering. Waiting for the pump and everything. And this is another indication you should always look for in older cars, is that, well, in newer cars as well, but mostly older, is that you have all those post lights in the beginning that you need to check that one of them is gonna turn off. I can try this again. And when one of those turns off, it indicates that they had run some fast boot up sequence or something on the computer. You can see here the ABS is off there, and you can also see that the turbo indicator here, it's flickering again. Still acting a bit strange. See if it's gonna stop anytime soon, or if it can keep going like that. Something really strange with the connection. Anywho, so what I need to do now afterwards is to run the car for about 10 minutes, which should fix the idle and the emissions. So we'll try to start everything up again. Fires right up. And you're gonna have a higher rev count right now in the beginning until it subsides a bit and going to 1000, which it should be. But when you reset the computer, it has to run some kind of maintenance protocol in the computer to check that everything is okay. All the sensors and everything is registering that it's normal. And when the emissions and everything is measured, it should idle as usual again. So we'll be waiting here for 10 minutes. And hopefully that indicator over here, it's not going to flicker or do anything else stupid. Okay, so everything is looking fine right now. It's 5 minutes still in the process, but it already reached idle of 1000. And as you can see here, we are at medium, as we should be on the temperature gauge. And in the beginning I had a really much bigger problem on this car with another sensor. It was the water cooling temp sensor that goes into the chamber in one of those motor parts that's in front of the car. And when it couldn't reach, well, it reached medium temperature and the car stopped basically because it panicked for some reason. But the funny part of that is when that sensor also indicated some errors, the rev gauge here started also to wobble, and the economy light also flickered. So it could be a combination of two problems at the same time, but I didn't have that problem during my maintenance when everything was finished and I changed the temp sensor. But just to be sure that before you start going around in the GT4 again, the medium temperature gauge needs to be idling on that for a while before you can be sure it's not a temp gauge problem, and the rev needs to be on a steady 1000 or just slightly above, and no flickering of the economy lights during the running period of the car. So it has to be more checkups on this car afterwards, why it's still flickering when the car is in just starting process before turning the key. So it's the ignition coil that I need to change and everything, and we'll see if that solves the problem. But for the meanwhile, you know what to do in case you have the same problems as I do. Hey, so we're back in the car again, and it's been a couple of days since I did everything with the maintenance, and did the whole idle thing as well after the reset of the ECU when pulling the battery. And as you can see now, when turning, ignition is on, no flickering, turbo pressure is on, the car is cold, it hasn't been started yet. And from what you can gather from this is probably because the car has undergone some kind of boot up sequence that checked everything out with the electronics, and that is probably what's happening when that flicker goes around here on the economy lamp, as we have shown before, the green light there. So to make the last test before trusting this car now again, everything is primed, so just turning the key. And having in mind that I cleaned my car as well, flushed a lot of water on the hood and everything, so even testing out if some kind of dampness can build up more corrosion again from the after the maintenance, to see if that does something, but it doesn't. Seems to be running fine as usual. So a good enough setup before receiving my new ignition coil and changing the lead to make everything more new, and probably with a more performance with the ENG version of the ignition coil this time. So that's that. I think we can agree that everything works, and a good DIY to do yourself the next time you have this trouble. Okay, bye bye.